This week on the show, we are delighted to be joined by Isabelle Doran. Now, Isabelle is the CEO of the Association of Photographers, but she is also the vice chair for the Creators' Rights Alliance and board director of the British Copyright Council. So we thought, who better to bring on to talk about all things copyright, AI, photography, legal stuff, I guess. Not really legal stuff, but somebody who has got a breadth of experience across various kind of strands, which most photographers, let's be honest, probably don't know a huge amount about, or maybe not as much as they should know. So, Isabelle, thank you so much for coming on the show.
Pleasure.
Start by telling our audience a little bit about your background. I mean, what brought you into those specific roles? Because it's quite an interesting journey for for somebody in the photography world to take that kind of path.
Thank you, and it's a delight to actually join you for this podcast, both Tom and Greg. Honestly,
stop it.
Well, no, I feel very privileged. So thank you for the opportunity.
Thank you very much for taking the time. Appreciate it.
Thank you. So essentially, yes, I suppose my journey. I know it's worth saying that I'm not actually a lawyer, and I'm not actually a policymaker in that regard. I have sort of grown into this role. I was a photography graduate, Farnham. Give a little shout out to
UCA.
Indeed,
there
UCA.
We go.
And I don't think they ever anticipated that I'd get to this level either. But we won't delve into that. But when I first sought a job, I ended up at Tony Stone. Which of course became Getty Images, and started in the darkroom. So I literally started in the basement and have worked my way up, shall we say. But I think it was my experience working at Magnum Photos, and obviously there's a number of people that have, tread the boards there as well. But I think that's where my first interest in understanding copyright and the importance of it really established itself. And in that respect, I think it sparked my particular interest in why was copyright so important, and what is it about that I suppose that we rely on. It's almost like this invisible force that most people don't even think about, because it's automatically applied to our works. And so, of course, with Magnum Photos, it had such a reputation that we needed to try and protect it, and there was always somebody trying to, exploit it in some way. So after that, I'd ran a picture library for about 14 years for a book publisher. But during that time, I actually put my head above the parrot and actually joined the British Association of Picture Libraries and Agencies as a director, mostly again because it was at the time when copyright was about to change in the UK. And so there was a lot of focus from a lot of different creative industry representatives. And essentially, it was the first time I think we saw big tech really raise its head and say, we need to change copyright law. It's holding back innovation. We need to I suppose lower the barriers of copyright. And I found actually I particularly enjoyed doing that, because suddenly I was in front of parliamentarians, I was in front of ministers, really trying to champion the rights of photographers, and I'd be the only one in the room. Often enough, not particularly at that time when we were exploring it, but as time went by, as everybody went back to their day jobs, I was still there. I was still plugging and pushing for photography and photographers to be recognised and acknowledged. And I think in some respects that was a helpful transition when I took on the role at the AOP. And in that respect, obviously, since I've been in this post, essentially we've seen the arrival of Gen AI, and I suppose the rest is history in that respect.
Do you ever feel like photographers kind of almost take their copyright for granted in a sense of because obviously copyright isn't the same in each country. The situation we're in now has, as you said, we've got to, through people like yourself and others, fighting for the rights of artists in order to kind of get that enshrined into law. But it's not a given. It's not necessarily enshrined in the way that it will never be changed. And I feel like sometimes photographers kind of take that for granted a little bit.
I suppose, and that's possibly because it is an automatic right. And there is what's known, I won't get too technical, but there's what's known as the Berne Convention, where a lot of countries signed up. to acknowledge the importance of copyright in that respect. But and it's the same with all laws across the globe, is that each country then narrowly defines how that's then, I suppose, applied to legislation in then national country. And so we're fortunate in the UK that we actually have a gold standard copyright framework. So it's automatically applied. You have enforcement measures, but again, I suppose in that respect, you don't often necessarily consider that you should use that or apply to enforce your rights in that respect, because most of the time you're focused on your day job, and having to chase up infringements can be a bit of a burden and a lengthy process in that respect. But you're right, it's there are other places around the world that don't have those protections. The US is something entirely different in that regard. I mean, they do have strong protection, but they try to encourage you to register your right.
Yes.
But it's quite expensive. So you end up just selecting maybe your best work and saying, right, I'm going to register that so that if I go to court, I can claim a bigger amount of damage for that. So, but no, I think we're very fortunate in one respect. However, I don't think, as you rightly say, people particularly realize the importance of it, but it's the foundation from which we then are able to commission our work. Photographers license their work in that way. Without it, you'd have nothing to be able to negotiate with.
Okay. Well, listen, I think we're going to come back to this, but I'd like to, before we get too far down that rabbit hole, because it is obviously it's so linked to everything we want to talk about with AI.
Indeed,
I'd like to go back a little bit and maybe just explain. We've had Nick on before from the AOP, and that was quite a few episodes ago. So I'd like you just to maybe introduce our audience to the Association of Photographers, what it is that they do, why it was set up, what their aims are, and I guess also, why people should join.
Yes, and I'll try and do that in a nutshell, because obviously I could talk about the AOP for for the whole length of the podcast. But essentially, we've been the voice of photographers and image makers since 1968. And I mean, we're almost coming up to our 60th anniversary in that respect. So it's a proud accolade. Of course. Dare you ask? Of course we're going to have one. But yes, I mean, it was set up by photographers for photographers. I think that's an important thing to underline. And it came about essentially because there was a bit of price fixing going on back in the late 60s with certain London-based model agencies who were essentially saying, right, we're all going to charge the same thing. And at the time, you had fashion and advertising photographers who were working with models a lot. And so, of course, most of us know about anti-competitive behavior. And so hence this group of photographers coming together to say, right, okay, we need to do something about this. And it's grown from that ever since in that respect. And I think that goes to the core of what the AOP actually does. Is what we do is we fight, to protect the interests of photographers. We champion their rights. We campaign tirelessly in that regard for the issues on copyright, on best practice, on professionalism. And as you said, you've mentioned Nick. I mean, he's gold dust to us in that respect, because obviously not only is he a photographer, but also he's the person you would go to if you join as an accredited photographer, where you get unlimited advice. He's your first port of call. And then actually we've had a very good year where we saved, for example, one member £50,000 from a case that was, they wanted to chase up an infringement case, and Nick stepped in and helped them. So,
wow.
But obviously we're not just, to do with contracts and infringements, but also a community hub. Our members are very good at sort of, communicating with each other with our forum. Obviously, we try to educate the sort of the breadth and range of our membership in that regard. So obviously, we've got the professional at the top, but the whole suite of members, all the way down to access and student members, we try to support them as they grow throughout their professional careers as such.
And I guess with any organization like that, it requires members to also get involved and to tell you what they need and what they're after, because that's how you grow and you develop. That's who you're there to serve. And I think it's, you have your AGM every year where photographers come along and get involved and have their say as well. So I think it's interesting. Now, you've been CEO there for how long now?
4 years.
4 years. And
it flies by.
Obviously, as I said, we'll get on to the kind of what you guys have been doing on the AI front. But so people that join, they can kind of expect obviously access to the legal side in terms of advice. There's what other perks do members get? So kind of, you don't have to sell it to me, I'm a member, but sell it to our audience. So what exactly can they expect if they join?
Well, I mentioned the forum, which, I mean, even I was surprised. And I think this is the interesting thing for me, because I wasn't a member of the AOP. I'd tracked the AOP for many years. Obviously, when I graduated, I knew it was there, and it had, it's always had a strong presence. But actually, it was the forum that was the most surprising when I joined as CEO and saw sort of underneath the bonnet just how much our members communicate with each other across the forum and ask so many different questions, different things. So it's a really wonderful support network in that respect. And of course, we have I suppose professional support. So in terms of providing professional indemnity insurance, which again, I suppose it's insurance is boring, but you have your public liability, but many professionals, perhaps if they're coming into the industry, don't realise they also need the professional indemnity insurance. So of course that comes as part of that package. If you're going for the accredited photographer, we have our newsletter, which we've changed. It's now a lovely flip book, which actually has proved to be very popular with our members, because then they're able to showcase their work far better rather than just a little list or a long scroll. We have a wealth of business templates in that respect, terms and conditions, licensing agreements, property and model release forms.
I mean, I remember the book that used to
yes.
deliver out to new members, which was almost like the Bible for photographers, professional photographers.
Yes,
beyond the lens. For people who are wondering what that looks like, that is this.
That is this, yes, indeed. Beyond the lens.
That has been thumbed through so much. It's actually a super helpful. You guys still do that? Yeah, you must.
We do. Well, this is it, and it has had an edit.
Has it?
To bring it up to date, but we're just.
What edition are you on now? I've got the 4th generation.
It'll be the 5th.
Oof.
Indeed,
right.
But we had to update it in some respects, particularly around copyright. Unsurprisingly. So, so it's waiting in the wings, shall we say. So hopefully 2026 we'll get the new version out.
Nice.
Perfect. Very nice. Very nice. So talking about changes to copyright, obviously that's a whole kettle of fish. But before we do this, I really should become a member. Shouldn't I?
You should. Absolutely, you should. We need you, Tom.
We'll talk after, I think. I did used to be a member, and then I don't know why, but hearing all of that again has kind of made me just go, yeah, probably should. We're stronger together, right?
Absolutely, and we need you as much as you need us. I think this is the key thing. It's not that we're just a fussy old trade association that sits there and does nothing. We can't do anything without our members in that respect. I.e., we are an extension of the membership. And obviously at this particular moment in time, we need as many of you with us in that respect and as part of that community. So definitely, Tom.
Well, you know what else we haven't, I don't think we've mentioned, have we mentioned the awards?
Not yet. No, that's true.
We should probably mention the awards. The biggest night for the photography social calendar. And obviously the awards are great, but everyone, it's probably the biggest get together of photographers in the UK other than the photography show.
Yes, I think you could be right there. I mean, we haven't analysed to see whether we are, but we do get that sense because we have about 600 people turn out for one night of the year for our awards, and it was our 40th this year, which was incredible. So huge amount of work behind the scenes to get that delivered. But we wanted to put on a good show because it was our 40th, and we so often hear of the sort of the wonderful events that have of the past. So we thought, right, we've got our work cut out here.
Yeah.
Well,
and you know what they say, awards begin at 40, don't they?
Well, there we go. Oh no, does that mean more work?
Yeah, I'm afraid so. But no, it's a brilliant event. I actually have got I don't know, 6 AOP awards somewhere. I don't know. I don't know. Sorry for my sins. They are somewhere, I think, hidden away. But I do. They were catching the light on my windowsill.
Nice.
You know, not to brag, obviously, but yeah, they're a lovely thing. And I believe, Greg, you might have won some recently.
I got a silver this year for environmental. But it was a very good party. I had a lot of fun. Maybe a bit too much fun.
No. I'm sorry, I've got to pull you up on that. I like the way you go, I got a silver butt. No, you got a silver, mate.
Yeah.
That is, you know, you like you say, I mean, how many entries do you have to the awards?
Oh gosh, it's not far off, I suppose, about 1,000. But this particular part of the awards is for our so we have a range of different awards, again, to kind of be inclusive in that respect. So we have awards that are open to everybody in that respect. But the particular one that Greg won was actually our sort of, I suppose, our peer reviewed as such. So it's for our accredited photographers. And we've got 10 categories. And for each, at the moment, we've got 3 judges. So there's 2 industry and 1 non-member photographer. Mm-hmm. So and they really do take it very seriously. It's incredible just how much commitment they give in terms of their time, but also really sort of discussing with each other the merits of the work. And of course, it's online, it's digital these days as it used to be in print. But essentially, those who get through, so where we're talking about different categories, and of course Greg's the environment category, you'll have several hundreds for them to go through, and they'll refine it down to about 20, of which from that 20 then they'll select the gold and silver. And I must say, it's not always a gold and a silver. Sometimes we'll have maybe 2 golds, 2 silvers, and so on and so forth. But for food and drink this year, the judges were really quite specific about what they wanted to see, and they actually supplied us with, no, we only want a smaller amount of work to go through, and we're only going to award 2 silver. So that was quite
That just sounds like they're shirking off on some work, doesn't it? Isabel, obviously I'm judging next year, and I would only like to see 1 photograph. That's the easiest bit. But quickly, we should probably shout out all the winners, because these are all the press you guys get for this is brilliant, isn't it? Because they're featured on so many different websites, so many different news outlets. So it is not just an evening where people can have a little bit of a drink and go and get their picture taken. I think there was a Capture One photo booth this year.
There was.
There we go. So getting a picture taken in the Capture One photo booth, slightly squiffy, some of them.
You saw the picture then.
I did see the picture. Yes, I did see the picture. But it's a great thing to, obviously have that kind of like that amount of press kind of spread out.
Yeah.
I think for a lot of photographers, it's just nice to meet, all of these other names in the industry. And then you very rarely get to actually meet them these days, because we don't have those, we don't all hang out at the labs like people used to or anything like that. So to actually all be in a room together, you're like, oh, you're so-and-so. Yeah, no, I've seen your work, So it's nice in that sense. I think it's for a lot of photographers who aren't particularly social within their own industry. It's a great kind of bringing together of minds.
Absolutely. And I think that's we're very proud of that. So it's not a sit-down dinner. It's just an opportunity for people to mix and mingle and talk and catch up, which I love about that. I wish I had more time when we're sort of delivering the awards on that evening to be able to actually talk and chat to everybody, because there's so many people that you just think, wow.
Are you busy at something like that?
Well, maybe just a little bit.
Well, listen, quickly, can we also talk? There's 2 things I want to quickly bring up. Number 1 is the discounts. Because as an AOP member, you do also get discounts. You get discounts at all sorts of different, from insurance to equipment rental to, I think there's still an Apple discount.
Yes, there is
There you
still
go.
an Apple discount.
So it's one of the only ways of getting an Apple discount.
Mm-hmm.
There's also, let's touch back on those forms, because the amount of times that I have sent out forms, releases, contracts, and stuff like that, and then all you need to do is you say, here's my paperwork. This is based off the AOP. This is an AOP standard. And they go, all right, cool.
Mm-hmm.
And that tends to be the end of it, unless they go for a full rights grab. But, they are pretty much industry standard, industry-wide recognized. The people who commission all of this stuff, they totally won't blink an eye when they get an AOP bit of paperwork in front of them. And that is a very nice... it's like a reassurance, sending out contracts and stuff as a freelancer is a miserable experience until I did send a contract back the other day and I literally printed it off, just put huge, great red lines through it. I'd read about a photographer doing that in the 90s and I was like, yeah, do you know what? I'm going to do it. And then a lawyer emailed me and said, you can't do. So that sort of backfired. But, having the repository of those, I was going to say suppository, but obviously that would be a very different,
wrong. Yes,
a very different conversation to have with a lawyer. But just having those available is probably just worth it in general.
Oh, absolutely. And I think this is a thing. I think it's interesting in terms of the journey that a professional photographer will make when they're starting out, because they'll be, if they get a few commissioned jobs, they'll be very buoyant about the fact that I can do this, I know what I'm doing, et cetera, and more often than not, once they discover and realize the AOP and what it can provide, particularly on contracts and the advice that we can provide, then suddenly you realize the value and importance of that membership, because essentially it is a negotiation, and it's not many people have that experience about contracts and what you can and can't push back on. And it can be even down to the tiniest word. And when you know any sort of lawyers, whether it's copyright or otherwise, is they literally will focus in on one single word, which can win or lose a case, essentially. So in that respect, knowing that they can change that, you can influence that change is essential.
That attention to detail is actually why I don't really socialize with many lawyers.
Well, unsurprising, I actually do socialize, and they've got a brilliant sense of humor, despite they really do. They really do. We'll talk afterwards. I'll give you some great names of people who.
Yeah, please. And can you give me some jokes to break the ice with some lawyers? That would be quite helpful. I would appreciate that.
No problem.
So yes, I feel like we should move this. I mean, obviously everyone's heard now of the advantages of joining the AOP. We would love to kind of show, obviously you're on the show. Obviously it's not a selling thing, but I would love to hear, we touched on it in your intro, your role. I mean, you must have stepped into it and about a year or two into it gone, oh shit. Like, it's very much, do you know what, do you know what, you see that frying pan that I'm stood in? I actually feel like I'm going to go jump into that furnace full of lava that's definitely on fire inside a burning factory.
Well, you'd be surprised to know I actually quite enjoy that.
Really?
So I knew exactly in some respects, I knew exactly what I was going into, because I was already doing it for for BAPLA, British Association of Picture Libraries and Agencies, I mentioned earlier. But not to get into the weeds, but because there was a particular part of copyright law that we have in the UK, boringly called text and data mining, which big tech want to open up. And at the moment, it's very narrow. It's just for you can text and data mine for research purposes, all fine and good. But they want to widen it so for all uses, which would basically mean what I suppose they're doing it by stealth at the moment. But everything that we have as data, essentially, they just want to get their hands on and commercialize.
But they've done it by stealth. It's not doing it by stealth. It's done. The internet reached saturation point. AI reached, it had ingested every available bit of content, I think about 18 months ago. So, yes. and this has got to be a hard thing for your role in general, is that everything is moving so slowly with regards
It's
to
frustrating.
legislation or protections and everything like that. You've got AI, which is, it's going to burst, right? And then we're all going to have to deal with the consequences. But the speed at which has been unlike anything I've ever seen. And I've watched so many of these tech kind of advancements. I think people know I quite love all of this stuff. But this has evolved at a rate that has just been, even somebody who follows it meticulously, I have not been able to keep up. And so I can't even imagine, if you're giving, a 3-day speech, or not speech, but if you're being quizzed for 3 days, the difference between day 1 and day 3, everything you've said on day, not everything, but a lot of stuff that you were discussing on day 1 could genuinely be old news because it's moving so quickly.
Absolutely, and you're completely right. So when I started, Nick and I discussed together about the changes we could see happening. But within, I suppose, within a year, we saw. So September 2022, we saw the appearance of stable diffusion, and in some respects, I had to get a grip of what it was very quickly in order to find out, well, what's actually happening with that, where they're getting their information. How well is it, I suppose, outputting work? And as we know, we won't go over that. I think everybody's familiar with the outputs that generative AI does. But the point is that I needed to try and learn and understand the technology in order to be able to push back with government. So essentially, my role is very much about trying to engage with government ministers, officials, and parliamentarians, because essentially, we know that big tech want to remove all regulations, all things that protect our interests as such. That's their overall mission. And they can do that. They don't need, one could argue, well, they've got copyright in their software, but they don't need it because they've got enough lawyers and enough power to be able to take anybody and everybody to court as such. So really, it's there for our protection. And when you understand that basis, you realize just how important it is that you've got to engage with the decision makers who set legislation to say, well, we need help, we need support, but you need to be able to deliver it with clarity, with clear arguments, with statistics, with information. And so that's one of the things that I wanted to make sure we got from our members was information.
Yeah.
So that so I could go to government and say, look, this is the impact. This is what's happening. If you need to listen to us. And in many respects, I think it's paid off because we are at the table. We are the voice for photographers in those meetings. For example, recently I had to. In fact, the reason why we weren't able to have this earlier was because I had to attend a House of Lords Communications and Digital Select Committee to be able to give them evidence about the impact of generative AI on creators, but specifically, obviously, photographers. And that, that's daunting. It's the first time I've ever done something specifically like that. But I think it's an opportunity I can't shy away from in that regard.
Yeah, absolutely.
It's a great opportunity to give our perspective and say, this is what's going on.
Now, I think I've seen clips of this. Where have I seen clips of you in action? Because obviously, thank you for everything you do. I will also say, I think a lot of photographers feel like there's no light at the end of the tunnel and that we're in just plowing into dark times. I had an email, or I got an alert saying that actually the government are now looking at making the copyright stricter.
That's interesting.
I'll have to dig it out. But basically, it was a very positive link to they're actually not rolling over and giving big tech everything they're after. And obviously, it's down to people like yourself. Can I ask you though about you just said then you asked the members and you were able to take that data to the select committee.
Yeah.
Out of curiosity, like broad strokes. That data, I assume it's a poll of, do you feel AI is affecting your job? And realistically, how much, either by a monetary amount or a percentage?
Yeah.
Is this data you're able to share now? Or is that kind of, because if it's are you able to kind of say
Oh, yes, absolutely.
Cool.
So, yes, absolutely. So, I think it's also on our information on our website as well. So we put all our consultations up on our website so everybody can track and follow what we're doing.
Now, quickly, with the website, can we just say that is the AOP, not the Association of Optometrists?
Exactly.
Right? That does come up a lot.
It does, yes. It's definitely Association of Photographers. But essentially, yes, when we're talking about information there, we're talking about the fact that we've got 58% of our members have lost work to generative AI, which is a staggering percentage in that respect. I think it's one of the highest.
What percent?
58.
That's a lot, isn't it?
It's a huge amount.
Yeah.
Which means that what we're talking about in terms of sort of loss of income, or what we term it as value transfer, because of course, where photographers are losing work, that essentially is being taken up by generative AI. And we've equated, and this was just our member surveys, so it was £43 million that was lost in that respect as a result. But what I had to find out, I had to ask my own MP to find out for us, because our wide industry stats, how many professional photographers are there in England and Wales? I didn't know the answer to that, because in the Office of National Statistics, it's mixed up with radio, TV, and film. So she was able to help me find that we've actually got 50,000 professional photographers in the UK.
Wow.
Yeah, that's more than you'd expect. And so again, that's something that I share with government, so that there's context to what we're talking about. It's not just a few photographers, and it's not just a few amateur photographers.
No,
these are professional photographers who are, not all of them will be freelance. Our members predominantly are, but essentially there'll be a lot who are suffering as a consequence of being outcompeted in the marketplace by these programs. And so, yes, having that information, having those statistics are particularly important, because then you can push those points and say, there is an impact, you need to do something.
But also, it's not just about losing work, is it?
No,
it's a bigger conversation to have. It is, obviously, if we lose work, then to AI, then obviously we're losing that work. But then the assistants are losing their work. The makeup artists are losing their work. The studios are losing their work. The lighting rental. Everybody involved is losing this work. And it's just the knock-on effect is just vast.
We've already seen it this year with a bit of a downturn and lots of rental houses potentially closing up and printers closing up.
And a new one starting up. For the full disclosure, I ended up buying a lot of equipment from all these liquidation sales by accident. That's a story for another time.
The Acme Barnes rental is coming soon. But
it'll break, but it'll get replaced.
But there's also a wider thing of obviously our industry. You're standing up for our industry, but there's many other industries that will also be standing up, and eventually there will be some unity that has to go forward, because the reality is these AI tech companies are attempting to replace all cognitive thought with their machines, and by doing that they're making these big promises of the utopia that we will be in. But the harsh reality is there's no current plan for how people are actually then going to be earning money or having jobs or being able to pay for things. There's just this arms race, because it's about not should we do this, it's can we do this, rather than stopping and saying, but should we be doing this? And because of the arms race nature of it, no one wants to take their foot off the gas, because, well, if we do that, then we give them the competitive advantage. So we're racing towards this precipice without really understanding what the other side of that looks like. And seemingly with a lot of the tech companies, and especially these billionaires who run them, are making the decisions on behalf of the entire human population. And I don't think they've necessarily got the same interests as we have.
They definitely don't.
So there's all this excitement about what it can do, but there's not been the philosophical kind of debates of but what will that actually mean? And should we? And, I saw something in the New York Times the other day about somebody debating whether or not we're actually in the process of creating the Antichrist, which sounds very dramatic, but the idea of creators wanting to effectively create a super intelligence, but with no real checks and balances as to whether or not that's a benign force or a malicious force is sort of terrifying. And so our part of it is a small part of a much wider discussion that needs to be had. But obviously, like, we're at this stage where we're all focusing in on our industries, and hopefully at some point we can, take the voices from those various industries and actually put them forward and present an argument to governments to say, you need to actually step up and do something here.
I have actually found the link. It's on Petapixel, so it's obviously a US website. I'll send it over, but I've just reread the headline. UK government signals shift on AI copyright laws suggests artists should be paid. My God.
My goodness, that's news to me, considering
yes, isn't it? So I feel that maybe I can retract my previous statement. It is just quoting Liz Kendall a few times, but I'll send it over and you can tell me how much of it's BS.
Real or not real. Yes, exactly. Yeah. So, yes. And this is the thing. It is, going back to the point of fast moving, it is fast moving in that respect. So, I mean, I was at a roundtable meeting with officials on Monday, and in this respect, it was looking at what are the solutions. So, I don't know whether they're calling early doors on that with Petapixel, but we'll see. But essentially, you're right, Greg, going back to the point of getting others involved. I mean, we're fortunate in the respect that, and again, because of I suppose my experience previously, it was making sure that we're not just siloed, but constantly talking to different creative industry organisations, which is why it's also important why, I'm sort of on board director and vice chair of these other organisations, is because we're sharing knowledge and information. And actually, one of the things that I think is fair to say, the creative industries can be quite fragmented, but actually when it comes to a particular issue, and this is a thing, there's been no other issue that's actually galvanized everybody together. And, and whether that's illustrators, musicians, authors, filmmakers, et cetera, even, models and model agencies and performers are all coming together and pushing back.
Yeah.
And in fact, we came together with this coalition called, you're going to laugh, so it's Creative Rights in AI Coalition. Its abbreviated name is CRAC. However, like the Irish, laugh, have a laugh, etc.
Here for the crack.
Yeah, exactly. Here for the crack, right. But the emphasis is being placed on crake for whatever reason. Don't ask me why. But
I've heard crack's not a good thing. that might be why.
Exactly. So it's that fine balance. However, that coalition has been working together for the past year. We had a campaign called the Make It Fair campaign, using the AI as the emphasis, and we all collectively stood outside Parliament with our, not protesting, because otherwise it calls into all sorts of different other issues, which I won't go into. But essentially, just having a photo opportunity with our banners, saying Parliament needs to do something about this. We were all also very fortunate to actually get the House of Lords on side. And you think, what? Hold on. But when we hear about the House of Lords in the news, generally it's, oh, well, they're elite, privileged representatives. But actually, they're very, very helpful and very supportive. And one of them, Baroness Biban Kidron, is a former, well, she's a film director, but she was a former photography assistant, and which I found out, which was fascinating. Yeah. But two, one of the most famous female photographers of our times, Eve Arnold.
Oh, wow.
Wow. Okay.
And she became our creators champion in the House of Lords, and her speeches are incredible. Suddenly you're there watching Parliament TV, which you think, what, really, rather than Good Morning Britain or something. But her speeches were electrifying and so passionate. And, I think she was inundated with the letters from different creators, because she was so passionate about our rights in that respect. But she galvanized the House of Lords to completely support us when we were trying to introduce legislation that was asking for transparency about what goes into these huge programs. We didn't win it. The government were pretty intransigent, but it showed to them that we meant business. And so they have been making great strides and efforts to try and hear our perspective. But I'm not trying to make excuses for governments. We've all got, criticisms about whichever government it might be.
Yes, we're recording this the day after the budget.
Yes, exactly. So
Thank you.
Thank you. Yes, indeed. So this is the thing, but that's the importance of the role that I have, is trying to get that engagement, trying to get them to listen, and trying to consider our perspectives, because the creative industries as a whole is the second largest sector in the United Kingdom.
Wow. Yeah.
Wow. What, after finance?
Yes, after finance.
I think that's something that the government is aware of and needs to be, but it does need to be reminded of, because we are obviously in a bit of a fiscal black hole in this country in so many ways. And for them, there is the reality that it's such a massive industry that they need to protect, versus the allure of big data centers and kind of everyone scrabbling to invest in AI, which, let's be honest, the jury's still out as to whether or not that's going to be a massive bubble.
The jury isn't still out. That is absolutely going to be a bubble in the next 6 to 18 months.
There's been so much, millions and billions, invested into it.
Yeah, of course. But you know how this is working.
Well, I mean, it's paying P to pay Paul.
Well, yeah, exactly. OpenAI are investing 10 billion or whatever into NVIDIA, and NVIDIA are then going, that sounds pretty good. We should invest into you. And they're taking that money and investing it back in. It's the same companies just passing the same amount of money around. That is then hyping up, everyone's just trying to kind of go, oh, this sounds good. We should invest. And so this is how these things, are going to burst, right? Yeah. You've got people, and for legal reasons, I'm not going to say who, but you've got people who are the CEOs of some of these big companies who are promising the earth, and they're talking about, all these things that they're going to be able to do. Well, they've not got a spade in the ground in a single data center. They're kind of saying, oh, we're going to meet these targets by X date. And you're going to go, well, you can't. There's no way you can physically do that, because all of this stuff takes way longer. It's going to take us 5 years to start building this. You're saying it's being promised in the next 2 years. Well, that just can't physically can't happen. How are you going to power all these things? There's so many issues when you look at the finances of it.
Yeah.
It's just out of control. I don't feel like we can have sorry, Greg, I don't mean to kind of like put you down that much, but it's definitely a bubble. It's definitely completely unrealistic. So many of these things, there is uncontrollable amounts of hype with it. And you've got to watch stock prices of people like Adobe, right? And you've got all these people who've been shouting about AI, skip the photo shoot. Yes, Adobe, I'm still pissed about that. All of this sort of stuff. And you kind of go, if there are no users, right? If you guys put all of your users out of business, right? How is it you think you're going to earn money?
Yeah, absolutely.
Like, if there's no one there to use your product, if no one can afford to use your product, if there is no one in work, and you've proudly put photographers out of business because you're telling people to skip the photo shoot. There are a lot of photographers who will, we talked about this in a previous episode. There are a lot of photographers who are desperate to move from Adobe. There's so many people and things like that. And it's just that the idea of all of this, the only people who will get rich are about 15 people up at the very top of these companies.
Absolutely, yeah.
And it's like you're going to put the fate and livelihoods of billions of people into the hands of these people.
I mean, people have looked at it as a wealth transfer. It's kind of what it is.
Absolutely,
but it's not just a wealth transfer; it's a power transfer as well. Yeah. If you've got, we'll just say 20 people in the world with all of the money, what are governments going to do?
Exactly.
No one's going to come and be like, all that money you took from everyone. Well,
but you can see it playing. Yeah, you can see it playing out, Tom, in that respect, because unemployment figures are rising.
Mhm.
So this is the problem. It goes again back to the point about economics in that respect. So when you look at economists saying productivity is the key, we need to look at productivity. It's the same, I suppose, same driver that big tech are using to say we can improve your productivity, we can improve. But if you actually look at it and step back and say, well, what is productivity? Basically, what we're talking about is one person, just for example, one person using all these various programs to save time as such. So that's improving your productivity. However, if it was previously that two people were meant to do that, but one person has gone and you're then using these productivity tools, you have one person who's not employed anymore. So it's a trade-off, effectively.
Of course, but the difference here, right? And I'm glad you brought that up. So for people who don't know, I actually have an economics background. You know, I'm not going to say what I was just about to say, but I do have an economics degree. Now, the talk about, when economists talk about productivity, they're talking about the productivity of people, right? When big tech are talking about productivity, they're talking about productivity of companies.
Yeah.
And those two don't often interlink when it comes to AI. Because you're right. If you've got a company who are going, well, this system will do the jobs of 30 people. Well, what are those 30 people going to do?
Exactly.
And also, I will say, can we just have a quick chat about productivity? I know I kind of wang on about it a lot. I'm kind of getting to the point where I'm like, I'm not going to try and be the best version of myself. I'm not going to try and, work harder. I'm not going to try and do all of this self-improvement stuff that we're constantly told on social media to do. I'm actually now just going to just chill out a bit and just enjoy life a bit more.
Yeah.
And I'm just going to be me. Which is, obviously everyone listening to the show is like, Christ, could you not just do some self-improvement? But it's all we ever hear is how to be better, be better, be better. And now all we're hearing is that you're going to be replaced, you're going to be replaced, you're going to be replaced. It's just exhausting, man. I can't even imagine what it's like for you, because you're on very much the front lines of it. I mean...
Yeah, but this is the thing. I think it feels I feel as if the role that I have is either a sort of David and Goliath, or it's a Robin Hood. It's very much I feel empowered to do something. I feel that I feel that I have that good responsibility to be that the voice at the front, saying you need to consider. For example, we've got the Labour Party. It's about jobs. It's about people in employment, and so therefore that's what I'm happy to keep reminding them about, is that you need our infrastructure to economic infrastructure to improve by having more people working, and also reminding them that that a photographer or any other creator isn't just a nice to have. You guys have skills. Photographers have a range of different skills that are sort of often overlooked. Your visual intelligence, the craft, the skills, the problem solving. There's a whole raft of things, skill sets, critical thinking, that generative AI can't do. That just regurgitates what you've already done and what you're brilliant at doing. And that's my job to remind them. And I think, I suppose helpfully, that terrible advert where you had the ballerina and, think of transferring your skills to IT. It's not as straightforward as that. You're good at what you do because that's your particular skill set.
Oh, is this the during COVID?
Yes.
Oh yeah, no. So I did the quiz. I was going to become a morgue practitioner.
Oh, no.
I'm not even kidding. Not even kidding. They like my stiff jokes. Quickly, can we talk about even just a bigger thing? Take people out of it, right?
Right.
So we're not going to talk about AI now. We're talking about culture, right? In the UK, we have created so many seminal cultural moments throughout history, and we are very proud as a nation, I think, of our, amazing musical history, or, the amazing photography history, or the amazing arts history in general. There's so many amazing things that the arts have given to the UK. Yeah. Surely they would want us to keep doing that. But it's a soft power thing as well.
Absolutely.
Without being funny, if the art of a country is shared around, it can only be a good thing.
Mm-hmm. Well, this is the thing when you talk about shared around as well. I think it's shared around and enjoyed, but not enjoyed for the purposes of building somebody else's commercial empire. And I think that goes to the heart of it, is that big tech is definitely after profit, after power. And and definitely to dominate in that respect. And as we're seeing, that geopolitical struggle between the US and China, it's ridiculous. It doesn't. But then for an ordinary person, you could say, okay, so that's the geopolitics, but how does it affect me personally? And I think this is where I suppose what I've found alarming and extraordinary at the same time is just this mechanism of trying to encourage, I suppose, big tech trying to encourage us all to go to the sweet shop and enjoy the sweets without realizing they're bad for your teeth, kind of thing. It's their PR machine to try and get us all to use these programs is extraordinary. It is like a drug pusher. It's kind of, use these. If you don't use these, you're missing out on the joy, the pleasure it gives you, etc., etc. But I think there's often I suppose, a bit like anything, another example would be smoking. We were all told that smoking, when it was first, on the scenes, that smoking was good for you, it would improve your health, etc., etc. And it took years until people realized, hold on a minute, this is bad for our health. What in the world are we doing?
But we look so cool.
Exactly. but we don't have that time. And I think that's one of the things I also want us to lift the lid on is, what is it that these programs are actually doing? They're exploiting everybody's creative works that already exist without consent, without compensation. It's happening overseas, which means that in a way what they're doing is they're creating these products and then bringing them into the UK market. And that's where we can't prevent them as such, is we know that anything that's networked, anything that's software and internet related, it can easily come into our market. It's not territorially set. But it's also, obviously, as we've mentioned, the displacement of livelihoods. But these programs aren't tools as such. They are. They don't enhance what we do. They regurgitate and compete with what we do. And I think there's a misunderstanding that when you're uploading your work to these sites, you think, oh, well, it's just a tool I'm playing with. But they're learning from you. They're learning your style and improving.
This is it. 100%. I mean, I do really wish we would stop calling AI, right? Because it is not. It is machine learning.
Yes.
Let's just call it what it is, right? It is machines making predictive moves based on all of the information it has ingested and created algorithms for it, right? That is what AI is. AI technically doesn't exist. And also, do people really go, oh, AI does? No. Do you genuinely think that we as the regular population are going to be able to get, proper AI? No, that will be reserved for kind of military use. It will be used for surveillance use. It will be used at a higher level that we are never able to access, because why would they give that away? So it's a fascinating thing. The thing for me is that you just said about the sweets in the sweet shop, right? Or if there's someone listening from America, candy. So actually, nice to see Joel in Chicago. Thanks for listening. But the thing for me is I heard two quotes which I thought were brilliant, and I think I've probably talked about them on the show before. We're not being careful enough when kissing the crocodile.
Oh yes, gosh,
right?
That's a good one.
Which I always thought was quite good. I've always say I'm being very careful when kissing the crocodile. And then the second one was, this AI and machine learning, this is going to be the asbestos that we are pumping into the walls of our society that generations far beyond us will be picking out. And I saw an advert on the telly the other day for an AI toy.
Oh gosh.
Who, as a responsible parent, is buying that sort of thing? These companies, they spend so much money on R&D to be able to get you in, to take as much of your attention, as much of your time as possible. Who on earth is buying that for a child? Anyway, that's a parent rant, but it's so frustrating. Go on.
Yeah. No, I was just going to say, but that's so. If you think about it, so you've got these enormous companies that can literally control governments, but their two missions are to reduce regulation, but also to PR the stuff out of it, so that we are saying, oh, but we have to use these programs. And then once you're using them, I mean, obviously there's been a lot of positive talk potentially around ChatGPT, but the problem is when it suddenly switches from oh, this is fun, this is interesting, I can help it do lots of different things. You start uploading your private information, but also and of course that's not locked down in terms of any privacy matters. So it means that somebody else can potentially retrieve it, but also the fact that you can, I suppose, effectively with things like that is that you don't realise that there's not factual, that information that's coming out of it. So you start believing and trusting in these programs because you think that they're giving you what's the truth, but in actual fact, all they're doing, they're statistical pattern predicting algorithms. And do you know what popped into my head earlier this week, which will make you smile, was a song by Grace Jones. And I was thinking, God, I'd love to walk onto a stage with this music, but then I realised you'd have to obviously pay a license for that. But was Grace Jones' "Slave to the Rhythm," and it's slave to the algorithm, effectively.
Yeah. I mean, when you've been doing this stuff in the House of Lords, I kind of wanted to go back to that. Do you feel that? Do you feel positive or negative that people are beginning to get it and understand it? The people in positions of power, because I've so often with these things, the law takes time to catch up because it needs people to actually be able to understand what they're talking about. And as you said, the rate of this is so fast, and to be honest, it's beyond most people's understanding of what actually is involved, that this is a really dangerous version of that, because it's accelerating to a point where somebody in their 80s who's in the House of Lords is probably going to have some difficulty understanding it. Maybe that's me being a bit patronizing, but I imagine that there are cases of that. Do you feel overly? How do you feel having been there and sat in front of those committees? Do you feel like they're beginning to get it?
Oh, absolutely. And it was very interesting in that particular select committee. You had one of the youngest House of Lords representatives, who was the appointee of Boris Johnson. I can't recall her name, so apologies there. But essentially, she did ask some very important probing questions, mostly about how do we remunerate creators, which I thought was helpful. But actually, there are a range of, I suppose, different interests and different blowing in understanding. But that's what we're there to do. We're there to educate them in that respect. We're there to say, well, this is the impact. These are the reasons why. But there are one or two who are extremely sharp. And there was, I will name check him, Lord Knight, who has a very keen interest in AI for education purposes, and is actually, I think, chair of a huge academy down in the southwest of England. So he would like to see AI in all our classes in that respect. So yeah, so and he was probably the one who was the most probing. He asked me several questions that were quite interesting and challenging. But again, it's all about preparation. It's all about making sure that our members are feeding to me so that I can then feed to, package it up in a way that's digestible so that they will learn and understand. But all of us across the creative industry in the UK at that sort of union or trade association level are really pushing very hard for them to get to understand. Because essentially on the other side of it, you will have big tech saying, oh, it's too difficult. Oh, we can't legislate. We shouldn't do this. Creators love these tools. So you're often having to battle on these very intricate thing. Well, not intricate, but very, I suppose, specific areas that they'll have an answer for, and likewise we will too. And so you're constantly having to go at it, and occasionally it is kind of you're having to step back and thinking, my God, are we ever going to succeed? But you can't let up. You can't let this go, because it's so important to everybody.
And so for listeners of the show, if they want to become members of the AOP and be involved in this, because obviously there's a lot of photographers that understandably are very concerned about what this means for the future of the industry. Once somebody is a member of the AOP, where are these forums kind of discussed? So you've talked a bit about the F22 forum.
So the F22 forum, I mean, that's our female photographers. I mean, they are a wonderful community of photographers, but they'll be much more talking about their work as such. It's usually the main forum.
The main forum.
In that,
well, so actually, I mean, it's
respect.
worth mentioning though. So you've got because we haven't mentioned the F22, which is obviously an important forum, but let's just very quickly discuss that. So that was set up recently, and that's thriving, from what I understand.
So it actually, its first iteration was because I think is it 40 years as well. So it was set up a long time ago, actually, when the AOP first formed. I think, was it in the 90s or something? But essentially, it's been going for some time. However, like all, I suppose, groups and forums, it steps away. Potentially, I suppose, if members are very successful, and it's always usually driven by those who have a strong interest. And if those, I suppose, personalities step away, then things can die off. So it was reignited during COVID, essentially, I think it's fair to say, which is why it's F22, because, of course, it's a pun on the F11 f-stop. So essentially, they come together every month, and they talk essentially about their work. They talk about supporting each other, because I think it's fair to say that female photographers still struggle with confidence, with being taken seriously, with getting funding that they want. So, and of course that's across the spectrum in terms of diversity within the industry. It's whichever stage you're coming at, there's going to be barriers as such, and so that particular community of female photographers do get together to share their knowledge and experience, which I think is wonderful.
Okay, so then with that, you've also got the wider community that can come on the main forum, and if they have concerns about AI, and I'm sure there's threads on there about all sorts of stuff to do with this. And where do you tend to get your feedback from the community? Is it through direct emails? Is it through AGMs? Is it through the forum?
All of the above. Yeah. All of the above in that respect. It's however and wherever we can through our different communication channels. We put out surveys. Nick and I were talking about putting out another one so that we've got more up-to-date data, because although I hate that word now, information. It's tinged. But yes, we collate that information from our members. And of course, the last one we did was February 2025, where we got that 58% stat from that I've been using. So we need to put our finger on the pulse and find out just how many members are affected. So yes, in that respect, it's ever in any channel. And of course, people do email me directly. They email any of us in that respect. So we're all accessible. But yes, we're only as good as the information that we get.
Okay. Well, the final question I want to ask, really, before we jump onto your desert island camera and photo book, would be, I guess, getting your take on where you see the state of photography at the moment and moving into the future, because it does feel like we're at this, and people have said we've been here before with the film digital kind of conversion, and there's been other examples of on a smaller scale, but this does seem like a particularly poignant point in the history of photography and what it could turn into. Where do you feel like we are at the moment?
And I think it's important to say, just on that point, Greg, is that this is different. I mean, this is, we see innovation, but this innovation is essentially a displacement. It's not an enhancement, I think is important to underline. But I think, it's a great question, and I had given it much thought, and I want to try and give some sort of level of optimism in that respect. But I think if we're talking about amateur photographers, I think they love, they love photography. It's entirely for their own pleasure. So I think that will still, be embraced as much as it is now in that respect. I don't think that will ever die down. If we're talking about professionals, then obviously we know the impact on professionals' livelihoods and, the impact of generative AI and the diversity of the types of photographers that we represent. But I think we need to push back, and in many respects, it's that recognition of your skill set. It's that recognition of the fact it's not just you clicking the button and job done. It's really shouting about the fantastic skills that you have, and the fact that generative AI machines can't do what you all do so brilliantly, what humans do so brilliantly, which is creative thinking, and it's coming up with incredible ideas that you use these cameras to be able to translate that idea. And generative AI is not, sort of, oh, well, I'll just put in a prompt and wow, look at this idea, because you can put in the same prompt on different machines and get different results. So this is the thing, it's a regurgitation, and I really want to underline that. But I think I would like to see the fact we would return to that visceral thing that we love so much, which is printed books, which is vinyl records, which is cameras. We're human beings that love to be tactile with what we have, and so therefore we're going through this tough time. But I'd like to see the fact that we will come out of it at the other end. We might have an industry that shrinks, and it's been shrinking for decades now in that respect. So it does mean that there may be less professionals, but there still will be. So that's my little chink of hope, that there still will be this wonderful sector that I love so much.
Okay. Well, in that case, we have to get on to our Desert Island photo book and camera. So please, kill the suspense. What are you taking onto your island, Isabelle?
Oh gosh, I know it was so hard, because I've got quite a few photo books, and I was lucky to have the privilege of working at Magnum Photos and got quite a few then as well.
Mm-hmm.
But the person I'm most intrigued by is Lee Miller, without a shadow of a doubt. She was the person that inspired me when I was doing my foundation course when I was a student, and came across her work. And it feels as if there are layers upon layers that are being revealed about her still in that respect. And so I'm absolutely fascinated, and I don't think I could ever tire of not reading about her life.
Have you been to the show?
We're hoping to go. So we're hoping the AOP team, we're going to have a little outing together. Nice. To see the exhibition, which will be fun. But yes, I saw the film, Lee. I met her granddaughter, Amy, who's an incredible woman as well. And they just said there's just so much work still to uncover.
Wow.
So,
wow. That's really exciting when you discover an archive like that, and it's finite, but at the same time, there's so much that hasn't been seen. It's an exciting prospect, yeah.
And they work really hard to try and keep that archive alive. So they have to have she was saying they have to have a minimum of 7 exhibitions a year and several publications just to keep the archive going.
Wow.
Yeah, so it's a huge undertaking, I think, in that respect. And one of the things actually, just to say, is legacy. Legacy is one thing that we don't talk often enough about. And our chair, Hamish Crooks, who still sort of works for Magnum Photos on a consulting basis, but he's always been about legacy, and he understands it because his father is Abbas. Magnum photographer, but he said,
who I met many years ago, actually.
Yeah. Well, this is it.
Fantastic photographer.
Absolutely. And this is the thing. I think we often underplay our legacies and what happens to those, because you're putting so much effort into your work. Really need to think about what happens next with your work. Don't let it just disappear or, get sold off, or found in a skip, whatever it might be.
Mm-hmm.
These are your careers. So that's something we want to be talking more about at the AOP.
That always makes me think of that photographer whose name, obviously, right now that I want to recall it, has escaped me. The nanny whose work.
Oh, yes. Vivian Mayer.
Vivian Mayer, yeah. And that kind of classic story of she shot all these images and there's these beautiful self-portraits in there and they never really saw the light of day in her life.
Well, she am I right in thinking she died penniless?
Yeah.
Yeah. And then they found this amazing body of work.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean,
It's
but it
incredible.
gives this sense of, suddenly this person who never saw it published and never had any idea that after her death, suddenly it would all be discovered, and this yearning to try and understand who this woman was and find out more about her. I mean, that for me is the power of photography. The fact that she has documented her life, and they're kind of contained in these 6x6 frames that literally are split seconds of her life, and yet they paint this glorious, interesting, fascinating, complex picture of somebody. That in its essence is what is so magical about photography, and what is so, to my mind, with generative AI, so bizarre, is the fact that we are charging towards this world where nothing is real anymore. It's kind of, there's that pearl of truth has gone.
Yeah, it's soulless, pretty much, isn't it, in that respect, generative AI. So yes, and yeah, essentially it'd have to be Lee Miller I'd take with me.
Any
And as
particular
many
book?
books as I could. Well, she's actually, I know, I was looking into that because I've got a few of hers, but that have been published over the years. But there's a new one, I think, by Hilary Flo and Saskia Flower. So it was October 2025. So that's the latest, but it seems to delve into her life a bit more, which would be interesting. So not just a picture book.
Okay. Well, we will try and find that link to it. And what would be your desert island camera?
That was really hard. Really hard. And of course, this is the thing, because of the position I'm at the AOP, I'm supposed to say every camera, any camera, non-brand specific. But I have to say, again, I think my experience having worked at Magnum was that I fell in love with Leica cameras, and I managed to get hold of an SLR. But I was thinking, gosh, if it's a desert island that I'm going to be stuck on, then that's not going to work very well, because the film, the processing, all of those.
No,
sorts
there's
of
a lab.
things.
There's a lab.
Is there?
Yeah.
Oh, now you tell me, because I'd actually specifically chosen it.
So you had a Leica R then?
Yes.
Which one? The R1?
Oh gosh, do you know? Now you're asking me, because it's tucked away in a cupboard. So
I always wanted one of them.
Oh really? Well, we'll talk later.
Oh yeah, okay, done deal. You said you needed me to become a member, so I'll tell you what I'll do. I'll become a member, and you can give me the camera.
Well, there we go. Is that a fair swap? I don't know. But yeah, no, exactly. I was going to say, but no. So I decided, right, I was actually looking at Polaroid and thought, hold on a minute, there's a Leica Sofort camera, which is an instant film camera, which is great. So I can just put I can put my Instafilm in.
If I'm right, does that take the Fuji, the little Fujifilm Instax capsules?
I'm not sure. I haven't tried it. I just stick with the Leica Instafilm. But the point is I was imagining myself waving the film while sitting on the beach, just waiting for the picture to appear. So
nice.
I went visually on the island and thought, what's going to work best. So
do you want to know a funny thing about? You remember? Obviously everyone shakes a Polaroid. Right?
Oh, yes, they do, don't they? Yeah.
Everyone always does it. Everyone's done it for years. I mean, since they were invented, everyone's just done the wave. But when Outkast released that song, Shake It Like a Polaroid Picture, you know that one?
Yes.
Excellent singing. Thank you.
I appreciate that, yeah. God knows why I went up 4 octaves. But Polaroid released a statement saying shaking the film will have no impact on the development of the image. And I've always just loved that. I was just like, brilliant. I love the fact that they felt the need to release that statement. It did make me chuckle.
That is fascinating, isn't it? Oh goodness. But yeah, but this is it. We've sort of honed ourselves into the fact that we've got to wave it, irrespective of being told not to. It's in our DNA. We've got to wave a piece of film.
Right.
But okay, I wasn't aware of the Sofort, so I'm now looking it up. But it looks great. And what is it about the instant? I guess it's the fact that you have it there because you thought there was no lab. So
exactly that. So I was improvising.
Excellent. Well, I think it's a good choice. We've not had it before, so it's a good choice by my book.
Oh, thank you.
Well, Isabelle, thank you so much for coming on today. If people want to find out more about the AOP, where should they go? Because I know a number of people that will accidentally end up on the aforementioned ophthalmological or whatever it was website.
Optometrist, which ironically is not hard to find.
So they can find us on the -aop.org.
Excellent.
Very good.
And
Perfect.
I take it the AOP has an Instagram and everything else.
Yes, we have Instagram. We're very active on LinkedIn. We have an account on Instagram. We have Blue Sky as well, but we have ditched
X.
X.
Yes, good.
So,
good on you.
Yes,
good.
Indeed. So there we go.
More people need to do that, in my opinion. But anyway.
Indeed. But
I ditched it years ago.
Yeah.
But actually, our LinkedIn is where you'll get updates on all of our policy work in that respect. So Insta, it's very much focused on our members' work, but LinkedIn
and I guess on
is where you
LinkedIn they
see.
can follow, can't they? They can follow the AOP, so that's how they then will get the updates. Excellent.
Yeah, exactly. So that's where you see our campaigning and our policy work.
Brilliant. Well, we will link to all of those portals in the show notes. Thank you so much for coming on today. It's been really informative.
Pleasure.
And I'm sure we will have you back in the future because I'm keen to hear the next battleground of AI and how you get on and what our listeners can do to help.
Well, keep our fingers crossed for potentially a personality right. That's what I'm pushing for.
Yeah, that's sounds like
you are going to have to now actually just tell people what a personality right is. Sorry.
I've just dropped that. That's it.
Oh, by the way, clang. So personality right.
So a personality right. So think of in the style of. So what is it that differentiates you all in the marketplace is your style. And that's what I'd like to see is, I suppose, a broader spectrum personality right, but essentially something that protects the style of you. That's right. What I'm trying to aim for. There's support from the likes of Equity, slightly different perspective, but because performers are not protected, but essentially authors are not protected by their style either. So there's a common ground, shall we say, across the creative industries, particularly for creators and performers.
Perfect. Well, listen, thank you ever so much for fighting the good fight. We do all appreciate it. So thank you very much.
Pleasure. Happy to do it. And thank you for the invitation again. Much appreciated.
Most welcome. Most welcome.